Alright guys, so we're going to go over how to use your TI-84. So the first thing I want to show you guys is how to reset it. This is probably the first thing you're going to want to learn. And the way you reset a calculator is you're going to press the button second plus 712. So when you press one of your keys, don't press them too fast because you may accidentally skip a step. So just second plus 712. You typically want to do this every time you get a calculator or you put it away, just so that it doesn't mess up with the next person using it or while you're using it. So second plus 712, pretty easy. The next thing is just some of the basic layers. I want you to take a good look at your calculator. So let me make this a little bit bigger here. What I want you guys to notice is the keys. If you look closely at your keys, you should be able to see actually 3 layers of keys. See, you'll see a top layer, that's what you'll see here. And then if you look closely, you'll see a blue layer, like quit, insert, A-lock, test, angle. You have a blue layer of keys, and then you'll even have a green layer of keys. So on top you can see the F1, F2. So I just want to point out you're working with 3 layers of keys. If you want to activate a blue key, you press the blue button. You'll know that because you have an arrow on your little cursor. And so the next button I press, I'm really pressing blue. So when I press 1, because I've activated blue keys, I'm pressing L1. So notice what came out. And then the same thing goes if I activate the green keys. So if I press alpha and I press, let's say 7, what I'm really pressing is the O behind it. Okay, actually that looks like a 0. So let's try alpha and then 8, which is really going to be P. So you have 3 layers. Now, as you learn more, you'll use the other keys, but for right now, let's go ahead and move on to some of the basic features that you're going to be using. So what I want to show you guys is the fraction menu. So this is one of the neat features of this calculator. So let's take a look at my fraction menu. And the way you're going to action your fraction menu is you are going to use your F1 key. So you'll press your alpha F1. So if I press alpha F1, this is what it comes out like. And the way these work is ND is numerator over denominator. So if I select option 1, I can type in a fraction. Of course, when you type in the fraction, make sure you use your arrow keys to move up and down through it. It doesn't automatically go down for you. So that's one thing you can type in. You could also type in UND. That means units, so the whole, and then your numerator denominator. That'll be your mixed fraction. So you can type in mixed fractions here as well. So type in 4 1/5. Notice how I'm scrolling through the pieces. And then this feature is pretty neat. Alpha F1. Feature number 3. What this one does is it changes from a regular fraction to a mixed fraction. So we have that possibility as well. So or maybe actually rather I should be saying improper to mixed. So it changes from mixed to improper. So let's type in let's type in our improper. So that's when the number on top is bigger than the number on bottom. So let's do 8/3. And what I'll do now is I'll go to alpha F1 and I'll select option number 3, and that'll change it to a mixed fraction. And then if I do it again, what it'll do is it'll change it back to an improper fraction. So we can go back and forth between those. And then finally the last one, this is my favorite feature. You can change decimals to fractions. So here's a decimal of 0.125. If I go to alpha F1 and I select option number 4, that'll change a fraction to a decimal or a decimal to a fraction, which is what I'm doing now. So notice it changed it to 1/8. I could also tap it in again, and what it'll do is it'll change my previous answer, which is 1/8, and it'll make it a fraction to a decimal. So I can go back and forth between them. So a useful tool. Alright, so we got our fractions. Next, I want to go over some of your basics on your quick keys. So let's take a look at our quick keys. So how do we type in certain stuff in here? We got the fractions, which is very useful. But within all the layers of keys, here are some that we use quite a bit in 8th grade, or just when you're using your calculator. So we got the exponent key. So let's say I type in 3, and then we want to find our caret key. That's going to be over here. And that allows me to type in whatever exponent I want. If I want to type into the 5th power, I can do that. But a more popular one is the squared key, because typically squared is a popular function. So let's say I type in 4 squared, and the squared key will be located in this spot over here. Okay. Next we got the insert key. So the way you're going to use this key is, let's say you're typing in a problem of 2 times 5 plus 7 minus 9. And then you notice, oh, it wasn't supposed to be 5 plus 7. It was supposed to be 5 minus 7. Well, instead of starting all over again, what you can do is you can use the insert key, and it'll put it in place of. Instead of deleting, it'll put it in front of it. Now instead, let's do this. Let's say I didn't mean to put 5. I meant to put 53. So what I'll do is, on the spot where I want 3, I'll put second insert, and whatever I type in, it moves everything down. So I insert something in place. So that's how the insert key will work. So if you make a mistake, you can use the insert key and it'll prevent you from rewriting it all over. All right, your pi key. The pi key, you'll find it behind the caret key, but in blue. So notice I'll have to press the second key to activate it. And again, you'll know the second key is activated because of the arrow. So there's my second pi key. So you know it as 3.14, but it actually goes on forever. Or this many digits is what the calculator will show. Next we have our square root key, also in blue behind the squared key. So since it's in blue, I'll have to activate it by pressing second square root. And then I can type in whatever I want. Be careful. Notice where my cursor is at underneath the square root. If you're doing a more complex problem, you want to scroll out to stop the square root. Otherwise, the square root will keep on going. And then finally, you want to be comfortable with the home screen button. So the screen I'm working on right now is the home screen, where you do most of your calculations. But let's say you press a button by accident, like here. And then most of the time you try to press clear, except this time clear doesn't actually work. So what we want to do is we want to press quit. So second quit, and it'll take you back to the home screen. And then finally, turning off the calculator. Seems basic, but just in case. The off button is right behind the on button. You just have to activate it by pressing the blue key. So second and then on. In this case, this calculator that's online, you can't turn it off. So it won't work on this one, but it will work on yours. All right, here's one of the features that you'll be using at some point. I want to go over the sort. You got sort A and sort D. A is going to mean ascending, which is least to greatest. And the way you get to this is I'll follow these steps here. What I want to do is go to Stat. I'll find that button over here. And then I want to go into Edit. So that's the first option there. So you can press 1 or just enter. And then on this menu, what you want to do is you want to type in your data. So I'll just use the example that's there. So I have -5. Make sure you press Enter so that it can go to the next row. And now I have 3. Notice I have a fraction next, so I'll open up my fraction menu and I'll press 1. So I'll type in my 1/3. 1, make sure you scroll down, 1/3. I got a mixed fraction, so I'll type in now option number 2. So I can type in a mixed fraction, and that'll be -2 and 4/5. And as you get more comfortable with this calculator, you'll be able to type this stuff in faster, of course. Now I got a decimal, 0.125, and 0.5. Now I have my numbers in there just in whatever order they came out. What I want to do now is I want to go to the Stat. So I'll go back to Stat, and I'm going to be paying attention to sort A and sort D. Depending on what I want to do, I'll choose sort A, sort D. So if I want to put them from least to greatest, that'll be sort A. If I want to put them from greatest to least, then I'll choose sort D. I'll just go ahead and use sort A in this one. Now notice where it takes me. So once you're here, I need you to type in list 1. So again, list 1, you can probably tell it's there. It's in blue. So what I got to do is activate my blue key, second 1. Now that I have it in there, I can simply press enter and it'll say that it is done. Now, there's two things you could do. You can go back to stat, edit, and now you notice that my answers are in a different order. They're in order from least to greatest. What you could also have done is, back on my home screen, I could type in list 1 and it'll read me all the numbers as well, this in this order. The only reason I don't like this as much is notice how my mixed fractions, it made it to an improper. If you want it the same format you typed it in, stat edit is the way to go. Okay. And then of course if you want to do descending, then you would choose sort D instead. So that's how you're going to use the sort features here. Okay, very useful key. All right, before I move on to the next problem, just to be safe, I want to go ahead and reset my calculator using second plus 7, 1, 2. That way anything I typed in is not going to be affecting my current work. Okay, I'll go ahead and show you guys a little more of this. All right, now let's go ahead and move on to Solver. Very useful feature. So to use Solver, you need to go ahead and use your math key and you want to scroll up. So I want to go ahead and press my math key here and I want to scroll up so that I'm at the very bottom of the page. Now mine says numeric solver, yours may just say solver, but we're talking about the same program anyways. So we'll go ahead and hit enter on that. And what we're looking at here is both sides of my equation. That's what E1 and E2 is. So let's go ahead and use the example we have here. Let's type in 2. Notice the X button that I'll be using, 2x plus 6. Scroll down or you can press enter. And E2 will be 4x minus 4. And then you have your equation typed in. What you want to do is you want to press enter again. And you're on this screen now. Make sure that this equation here is exactly the way you wanted it typed in. And then very important, make sure that your cursor, your little blink thing right here, make sure it's at the X. Sometimes you move down by accident. It will not work if your blinker is here. In fact, it'll mess it up. So make sure you're here where it's 0. And what I need you to press is alpha enter. You want to press the solve button, but it's in green. So I'll press alpha enter. And this does happen sometimes. You notice the example over here, it just says x equals 5. Every now and then the calculator does have round off error. So if you get 5.000001, just know that it's round off error and your answer is still 5. Okay, so that is Solver, very useful for solving equations. And next, another useful feature is the linear regression method. So let me go ahead and reset my calculator again, start clean. And linear regression, you're going to use this when you're trying to find slope or y-intercept, okay? And you'll do that a lot in 8th grade, so we want to make sure we use that. So the way you get there is you're going to go to stat and then edit. So when I go to stat, edit's the first one, so there I am. Now in this menu, I want to be using list 1 and list 2 this time. So list 1 will typically be for your x values, and then list 2 for y values, and I'll go ahead and type those in. So 0, enter, 1, enter, 2, enter, 3, enter. Make sure you move over to the side, and I'll type in the y values now. So I got 3, enter, 5, 7, and 9. Next, we want to press stat and move over to the side. So stat and move over to the side. I want to be on Calc. So notice you're looking for Calc. And then the reason we call this linear regression method is because you want to use option number 4. Lin reg, the linear regression. Now, careful, there is option 8. That is not the same. We want to use option number 4 because that represents your MX plus B feature. So I'll select option number 4. And once you're on this menu here, you want to scroll down to calculate. That's what it shows here in the image. So I'll scroll down all the way to calculate, and you just hit enter. And so my answer is A is 2, B is 3, so it's y equals 2x plus 3. All right, and then last on this side, we want to go ahead and use the scientific notation. So I want to be careful with this button here. Some of you press it by accident often. Let's go ahead and I'll clear this. So starting back at the home screen, press your mode button, and it looks very scary. There's a lot of stuff going on, but really for what we're doing, we only want to mess with one thing. If you see where it's blinking right now, you'll see it's under normal. That's typically how I'll be using your calculator. But we may come across times where we have scientific problems, so we can change, notice how I scrolled over, we can change it to scientific mode. Now, it's hovering over and it's blinking. I haven't actually pressed it yet. You have to press enter. You have to notice that it's now the highlighted one to be in scientific mode. So now that I've done that, if I get out of here, whatever number I type in, say like 50,000, it'll rewrite it in scientific mode. So 5 times 10 exponent to the 4th. You're supposed to know the times 10, by the way. So useful feature, but once you've done that, if you want to go back to regular mode, it doesn't actually change it because you're still in scientific. So if you want to go back to mode, you can go ahead and select normal again, and then whatever I type in, like 4 plus 5, it'll just rewrite it in the normal form. Now, if for some reason you don't know how to change it and you forget, you can always fall back on second plus 7, 1, 2. All right, so this has been the front side, and now let's go ahead and go to the other side. And on this side, what I want to go ahead and go over first, this is more of the graphing features. What I want to show you is how to mess with your graph. So first, let me go ahead and get to your graph. So a lot of this side right here has to do with the graphing part. Here is these top keys here on your calculator are your graphing keys. And this is typically what your graph looks like when you reset it. That's your standard view. What I want to do first is I want to go ahead and show you guys how to turn on the grid line. So let's go ahead and follow the grid line. And what we want to do is we want to go ahead and press format. So let's go ahead and press format, but format is going to be in blue. So I'll press second format. And on this menu, there's a lot of features we can change, but what I want to change is just the grid line. So notice right now, it's on grid off. Let's go ahead and change that to grid line. So let's scroll over, and again, you have to press enter for it to actually be selected. Now you can mess with the colors and everything like that. I don't recommend, but for right now, now that I've done that, if I press graph, notice how my original is now filled with the grid line. So that's pretty useful to have when you're trying to look at the graph off of your calculator. Now, another useful feature is going to be to change the size of your window. So right now this looks like a little window, as you guys can see, and what I want to do is I want to change the size of it. So if I go to window, this is my standard numbers. Your graph goes 10 in every direction, and it's going by, notice, an X scale and a Y scale of 1. What I could do is I can extend these to any numbers I want, and what I typically like to do, depending on the problem, I can change it from -10 to, I can just stay to 0. Maybe I don't need that side. And then I can change my minimum to 0 as well. So if I go and change, notice those two changes I did, notice how my graph looks now. So every now and then you'll have graphs that you don't need the negative side of the x-axis or the negative side of the y-axis, and I may go this route. Your window, if you want to make the y-axis go further, so maybe I can change my y max to, let's say, 20. And notice how I get more of these lines here going up 20. So as you change the window, it'll change the way your graph looks. So you never know when you might need to mess with this. And then you'll notice here the scales, the min values, the max. This is kind of interesting. If you change the X res, you can actually change how fast you graph. So if I go to X res, you want it to be higher but not dramatically higher. Let's say you just change it to let me show you a regular graph. So let's just say X and then 2x and then 3x and then let's say negative 2x. When I press graph, you'll notice that they take a while to actually graph. If you go to your window and I change my X res to something higher, let's say 3, when I graph now, they'll graph a lot faster. So just a useful hint in case you're working on graphing. Okay. So you got the grid line and the window size. I'm going to go ahead and change my window back to the standard. Notice how my numbers are changed. I can go back and fix them myself, or I could just reset. So I'm going to reset to make it a little bit faster on me. So second plus 712. Now notice when I go back to window, everything's back to how it started. That's what it'll do every time you reset. So if in case you mess something up, you can always reset it and it'll fix it. I want to turn on the grid line one more time before I go to the next. And what I want to go ahead and show you guys, notice how my grid line is on, is I want to show you guys how to graph equations. So I kind of showed you earlier by accident, but when you graph an equation, what you want to do is you want to head to your y equals. So we're following these steps over here. So you go to your y equals, and on this screen here, you'll go ahead and type in your equation. Now, you're able to type in, I believe it's 10 equations. I don't know how far down I can go. Yeah, you can type in up to 10 equations. I don't know why you would ever need to do that, but you have that there if you would like. And then as you can see on the side, you can color code your equations, but we're going to go ahead and just use the example that we have there. So we'll type in x plus 1 as my first equation, and as my second equation, let's see, can't really tell what that says there. It's going to be negative 1/3 x minus 6. So we'll go ahead and use that. So negative, whoops, you type in the fraction first. Notice how I can move to the front of it. Negative, and then scroll into the box, 1/3. Notice how I have to keep on scrolling to type that fraction. 1/3 x minus 6. And then all I gotta do from this point is just to press graph. And notice my normal window and my two lines are graphed. Now while I have this on the screen, we can also use the calculator to solve a systems of equations. So in this case, I already have this graph, and what I want to know is where do these two lines intersect? That's how I solve the system. So I can kind of see here where they intersect, but I'm not 100%. So what I could do is I'll go ahead and press second calc. It's in blue, so I'll press second calc. And on this screen, you'll see here option number 5, intersect. So I'll go ahead and select option number 5. And I have this little cursor there on one of the lines. And what I want to do is you want to press enter 3 times. So I'll press enter once. Notice now it goes to the next line. Enter again. And then when I click enter the 3rd time, it'll go ahead and find the intersection. So in this case, it's negative 5.25 and negative 4.25. I wonder if my equation was a little bit off. It's probably not x plus 1 up here. But we get the idea. So we can use this to find the intersection of 2. All right, so we got grid line, window, graphing, systems, and then a useful tool is we want to know how to use the y equals table. So how do we access the table of all of this? All right, so right now, let's go ahead and start off with putting in an equation. So I'll reset just so I can start from clean. Second plus 7, 1, 2. And you'll go to your y equals, and we'll use this equation we have here as an example. So y equals, and we'll type in 5x minus 3. Okay, once you're there, what we want to press is second table. It's right behind the graph button, but in blue. So second table. And what we'll see here is all my x and y values. So I'm looking at a table. And you have the ability to scroll up or down as far as you'd like, or as patient as you're able to. But what I want to show you now is the table set. So let's go to our table set. So we're on the table, but there's actually a way that you can set the table. So what we want to do is press second window. So second window, and now I'm on table set. Now mine says -4 because that's where I left off, but typically it'll start at 0. And what I want to do is change it, the independent value, which is my x, to ask. So here I'll scroll down to independent, and I'll change it to ask. Now go back to your table. So I'll press second table. And at a glance, it looks like, oh, I messed it up. There's nothing there. But actually, I can type in whatever x value I want, and it'll give me the y value. So let's say you wanted to find when x was 500. Well, you wouldn't scroll down 500 times. You would now just type in 500, and it would take you straight to the y value. So it does save you quite a bit of time whenever you're trying to scroll to something, or even -2,000. Don't know why I would need that, but you never know what type of example you'll be working with. Okay, so this has been a TI-84 overview, and you guys can use this reference sheet here as you guys need, and hopefully this has helped you.